Minneapolis, National Action Network, Staten Island.
Yes, sir. That's it.
Yes, yes. Come on, give him a hand, give him a hand.
This week, we went and visited the scene of the crime that killed George Floyd. We've been talking to the family. We wanted to come today and have a vigil with the mother of Eric Garner and his sister, because right at this spot is where we heard Eric Garner say, which 6 years later was said by George, "I can't breathe." And policemen that are sworn to uphold the law and protect the public were the ones responsible for the death. They're trying to make the story the reaction to murder rather than murder. The fact is that the reaction to murder would not have happened had there been no murder.
Right.
Do not get it twisted. When we got to Minneapolis, they asked us if we came to denounce violence. Yes, the violence started when a man put his knee on the neck.
Yeah, that's right.
And held him down for over 8 minutes. That's the violence that needs to be dealt with. The charging of third-degree murder does not fit the crime.
Not enough.
If, according to the minute-to-minute running of the tape, that in 6 minutes he had been handcuffed for the full 6 minutes. He became limp, couldn't speak anymore. They knew that he was either unconscious or dying. And he kept his knee on his throat another 2.5 minutes. Even if they are claiming they can't prove intent at the beginning, clearly it turned into intent when he wouldn't get up those last 2.5 minutes. It doesn't matter when intent started. It matters whether with any time during the time intent kicked in. You're dealing with murder and murder in the first degree. The family wants murder one. We want murder one. And we want murder one. 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 We stand with the family and also calling for the arrest and prosecution of the other 3 police.
Absolutely, yes.
If they could stand there and not stop what happened. People walking by spoke up. How could people walking by see what they couldn't see? So they intended not to do anything, which is an intentional criminal act. We don't want just one, we want all 4.
Every last one.
They're saying
all 4. 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 All 4.
They're saying that we need to go through all of it. You only need probable cause to make an arrest.
That's right.
Probable cause is clearly there with the tape, clearly there with their actions. They should arrest them, charge them, and then tell them what they tell young folk in our community. Tell it to the judge. If you got a story, tell it to the judge. Tell it at trial. But don't try this case in the prosecutor's office. Try it in the courtroom against all 4.
All 4. All 4. All 4. All 4. All 4. All 4. All 4. All 4. All fucking 4.
Let me say this. We are glad that in Minneapolis, And here we're seeing people of all races. Because this is a crime against everybody. We're glad to see whites, Asians, Latinos march with the black community.
Yes, right.
Because we've been abused too long. And we want it to stop. If they had prosecuted the police here that choked to death Eric Garner, maybe Floyd would be alive today. So that's why we came here. We returned to the scene of the original crime.
That's right.
Right here is where they gave police the feeling they can get away with choking us to death. We are going back this week to Minneapolis. I've been invited to speak at the funeral. The counselor, Ben Crump, the attorney, will be on my show this evening with the brother. We will go in Minneapolis and then on to Houston for both funerals. Ms. Carr has spoke to the family as only she knows the pain. I understand that the president called protesters thugs. Well, Mr. President, I brought somebody to the scene of the crime that knows you well.
All right.
This is one of the Central Park Five. He did 14 years in jail for a crime he didn't commit. Donald Trump took ads out calling for him to be executed. Even when they proved with DNA he didn't do it. Donald Trump said they were still guilty. He did not get executed, Mr. President. He's in Staten Island at the scene of the crime. And he's alive. And even just like you took him and those 4 boys and put them in jail on probable cause, we're here saying take those others of the 4, those other 3, and put them in the system.
That's right. That's right.
That's why we're here. So before we have our silence for justice, let us hear from a woman that never stopped fighting.
Amen.
For 6 years, she kept fighting. Even when the press was gone and we were alone, she kept fighting. She fought for her son. It took 5 years to get the policemen just fired. At least fired these policemen right away. But in good old liberal New York, we had to fight 5 years and never got them prosecuted. That's why we're at the original scene of the crime. Let us hear and salute the mother of Eric Garner, Gwen Carr.
Hello, everyone. I'm so glad that everybody came out to commemorate today because we have to send a message. We're not just going to sit still while they kill our people. They come into our neighborhoods. They brutalize. They terrorize. They murder us.
Right.
And then it gets swept under the rug.
That's right. That's right.
No more sweeping under the rug. Too much trash.
Too much trash.
We got to get rid of it in another way. So, 5 years ago, almost 6 in July, we stood in this very spot because my son here got murdered here.
Yes.
I feel the same pain when I heard about Floyd. He was saying, I can't breathe, and calling for his mother. I could hear Eric echoing from the grave. He was calling out to me, Ma, help, help. This is too much. That's why I had to stay on the forefront for my son.
That's right.
The cameras was out here just like they are now.
All right, Glenn.
But then weeks later, the cameras went away. But I was still out here. Me and Cindy and my family, we was over by the post office. everybody else was gone. But I kept marching. Even when the DOJ said that they would not go further with charges 5 years to the day when my son was killed. They said we won't go any further. But me and the other organizers, like Rev Sharpton and all the rest of the ones who stood behind me, we said, you're going to stop, but we not. That's right. And by us not stopping, we got a day in court so that we could get a departmental trial. And we got an ounce of justice. We got one of the police officers fired. Not enough. Just like with Floyd, not enough. I spoke with the commissioner. The commissioner told me he wasn't going to prosecute any of the other officers. He said this was the end of it as far as he was concerned. I said, far as you're concerned. But we're going forward because it was not enough. It's never enough because there's no justice for these boys. First it was Eric. Then now it's Floyd, and God knows how many in between that we didn't hear about. So we got to get justice for everybody.
That's right.
And that's what we're going to fight for.
Yes.
I don't condone violence, but I understand it. Because sometimes you get so filled up with the things that happen, and some mothers lost their sons and nobody ever recorded it, so we don't know about it. But then when something like this happens, you just combust. Everything just comes out. But you know, we must stand vigilant. We must stand strong, and we must channel and harness our anger so that we can get to where we're going. And I thank you so much for coming out today.
Let us say this. We want to pause for one moment of silence in memory of Eric Garner, in memory of George Floyd. Let us, whichever way you meditate, pause for one moment and respect the lives that were lost. The system acts like those lives are worthless. They mean everything to us. We could have been George.
That's right.
We could have been Eric.
That's right.
And we have enough sense to know about that and to recognize that.
That's right.
Let us stand in silence for one moment out of respect for the sanctity of their lives. Thank you. No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
What do we want?
Justice.
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 When do we want it?
Now.
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 I'm looking for all four. I'm looking for
All four.
I'm looking for
All four.
I'm looking for
All four.
I'm looking for
All four.
I'm looking for
All four.
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 Thank you.
We're gonna have a peaceful march down to the 120 precinct. There will be no looting. There will be no fighting. We're gonna march peaceful and show that thug in the White House that we are decent people.